Subscribe our channel Top Stories CNN for latest news updates.
U.S. show of force sends Russia a message in Black Sea. The U.S. Navy is ramping up its presence in the Black Sea as part of a bid to counter Russia's increased presence there, a U.S. military official tells CNN. It's a region that has become increasingly fraught with tensions as Russia has reinforced its military forces in the area following its seizure of Crimea from Ukraine in 2014, a move rejected by the vast majority of the international community. On Saturday, the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer USS Carney joined the USS Ross in the Black Sea to conduct maritime security operations, according to a statement from the U.S. Navy's 6th Fleet, which oversees U.S. naval operations in the region. It's the first time 2 U.S. Navy warships have been in the Black Sea since July 2017. Our decision to have 2 ships simultaneously operate in the Black Sea is proactive, not reactive, U.S. Navy Vice Admiral Christopher Grady, the commander of 6th Fleet, said in a release announcing the Carney's arrival. We operate at the tempo and timing of our choosing in this strategically important region, Grady said, adding that the continued presence of the U.S. Navy in the Black Sea demonstrates our enduring commitment to regional stability, maritime security of our Black Sea partners, and the collective defense of our NATO allies. On Sunday, Russia announced its own naval deployments to the area, with the Russian Ministry of Defense issuing a statement saying that a Russian frigate, the Admiral Essen, and 2 patrol ships had entered the Black Sea for a series of exercises. A U.S. military official told CNN that the decision to deploy both the Carney and the Ross to the Black Sea was part of an effort to desensitize Russia to the presence of U.S. military forces in the Black Sea, which sits between Eastern Europe, the Caucasus and Western Asia. 2 U.S. defense officials based in Europe told CNN that Russia is particularly sensitive to U.S. military operations in the Black Sea given recent Russian moves to militarize Crimea. U.S. and NATO officials have accused Moscow of deploying large numbers of troops and military hardware to Crimea in recent years. A NATO official told CNN that Russia had deployed submarines to Crimea, saying that while the Western alliance was not looking for a tit-for-tat deployment of military assets to the region, NATO was strengthening its position in southeastern Europe. Basically anything new that they have they're putting in Crimea, a U.S. defense official based in Europe said of Russia's military activity. The official told CNN that Russia was putting in the full panoply of their weapons systems in Crimea, saying Moscow had stood up a new army corps there and was deploying a lot of their new anti-access missile systems, coastal defense, air defense systems, in addition to the ground troops. Given Russia's increased military presence, U.S. officials say Moscow has become increasingly sensitive to U.S. forces in the region, fearing that U.S. military capabilities could undermine Russia's advantages. Another U.S. defense official based in Europe told CNN that the Russians are very sensitive to our precision strike capability as well as U.S. ballistic missile defense assets such as the Aegis ballistic missile defense system, which is deployed on both the Ross and Carney. You get ships up in the Black Sea, that makes them feel more threatened, the official added. Officials say that same Russian sensitivity explains why Russian aircraft have appeared to perform more unsafe intercepts of U.S. surveillance aircraft in the area than they do in other areas. U.S. officials say the surveillance flights are necessary to better understand Russian military activity. Russia is also not particularly transparent in what they do, which obviously requires us to then be able to monitor them by other means, and reconnaissance is one of those means, one defense official said. An armed Russian Su-27 jet performed an unsafe intercept of a U.S. Navy EP-3 surveillance plane while it was in international airspace.
Following the January incident, the U.S. State Department issued a statement saying that such unsafe actions increase the risk of miscalculation, danger to aircrew on both sides, and mid-air collisions. The Russian Ministry of Defense said the intercept was in accordance with international rules for the use of airspace and that the Russian jet had prevented the U.S. plane from entering claimed Russian airspace near Crimea. A Europe-based U.S. defense official criticized Russia's attitude of ownership over the Black Sea, noting that NATO nations have more coastline by far on the Black Sea than Russia does, so it's certainly not a Russian lake. In addition to Russia, the Black Sea is bordered by NATO members Turkey, Bulgaria, and Romania, as well as NATO partners Ukraine and Georgia. NATO has boosted its activity in the area as part of its tailored forward presence, which is headquartered in Romania, one of only 6 NATO nations to spend 2% of its gross domestic product on defense. Officials say that given the heightened tensions and increased military activity in the region, it is important to increase the frequency of U.S. activity in the area and desensitize Russia to the presence of U.S. military forces there, helping to establish rules for how the two countries should safely operate in proximity to each other, as they did in the Cold War.